Welcome to I Love Asian Dramas. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel to get notified when new videos are uploaded. The title of this Korean historical romance and fantasy drama is Bon Appétit, Your Majesty from TVN with 12 episodes. The series kicks off with Ji-yeong being presented to King Heon during a court assembly. To everyone's astonishment, Heon announces that Ji-yeong will take on the role of chief of the royal kitchen. He orders her to prepare every meal for him, but warns that if she serves the same dish more than once, she will face execution. With no choice but to comply and eager to return to the future, Ji-yeong agrees to the daunting task. In the present day, Ji-yeong faces a problem with her burner during a cooking competition. Determined to win, she improvises a way to light a fire, enabling her to cook her steak within the time limit. She tells the judges that her dish was inspired by a meal that was a favorite of King Yeon from the Joseon dynasty. When they taste her creation, their praise is unanimous, and she walks away with the victory. Overjoyed, Ji-yeong shares the good news with her father, who reminds her to bring back a historical book. He also mentions an upcoming solar eclipse, to which she replies that viewing it from her plane would be delightful. However, while on the flight, her seatmate accidentally spills coffee on her, prompting her to quickly clean up in the restroom. While drying off the Mangarok historical book, Ji-yeong comes across some text that magically transports her back to the Joseon period. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself caught in a net. Just then, an arrow slices through the net, freeing her. As King Heon spots her, he readies his bow, suspicious of her unusual appearance. A tense chase ensues, leading them to the edge of a cliff where they argue. Heon believes she is a supernatural being known as a guinyo, while Ji-yeong is convinced she has landed in a historical drama. As he draws his sword to end her, an unknown assailant intervenes, shooting Heon with an arrow, causing both him and Ji-yeong to tumble into the water. Miraculously, they both survive. After resurfacing, they continue to clash, with Heon still convinced Ji-yeong is a guinyo, while she views him as an ungrateful man despite her saving his life. Meanwhile, Kang Mok-ju reflects on her past, recalling how Prince Jae-seon lifted her from slavery to become the king's concubine. She instructs her maid to send word to Prince Jae-seon that the king has not yet returned from hunting. As Heon finally reveals his identity as the king of Joseon, Ji-yeong is skeptical until they stumble upon a house. A commotion ensues when Ji-yeong enters and encounters a woman, leading to mutual screams of surprise. Conflicted about whether she has genuinely traveled back in time, Ji-yeong asks Seo Gil-jeom to accompany her to the nearby cliff to search for her bag. Feeling the pangs of hunger, they decide to whip up something to eat with whatever ingredients they can find. Ji-yeong prepares a tasty bibimbap, which Heon and Gil-jeom relish. The flavors remind Heon of his mother, bringing him to tears. Afterward, Ji-yeong and Gil-jeom briefly leave the sleeping Heon to wash in the river. Meanwhile, Heon's men arrive to rescue him, and he orders them to capture Ji-yeong and Gil-jeom, who are in the midst of discussing how Gil-jeom is trying to evade being sent to the palace, as per the king's decree to round up all women for palace duties. Ji-yeong and Gil-jeom were ultimately captured and imprisoned alongside other women. During the selection process at the governor's office, neither Ji-yeong nor Gil-jeom was chosen for service at the palace due to their age, and they were instead assigned to the kitchen. Ji-yeong was captivated by the variety of ingredients she encountered, but quickly grew disheartened by the lack of organization in the kitchen. Determined to improve things, she stepped up to take charge. Ji-yeong struck a deal with the governor's son, promising that if she could impress them with her cooking, he would release all of them. He agreed, and Ji-yeong began assigning tasks to the women. Spotting a large cut of meat, she decided to prepare steak and closely oversaw the efforts of her fellow cooks. Recognizing the toughness of the meat, Ji-yeong used a special cooking technique to tenderize it with just the right amount of heat, and her efforts paid off as the dish came out perfectly. Meanwhile, Im Song-jae, along with his father, was searching for women to present to the king. However, Song-jae showed little interest in any of them, insisting instead on the granddaughter of the governor, despite the governor's son's protests that she was too young. To make matters worse, Song-jae rudely criticized the food, prompting the governor's son to suggest punishing the cooks. As the cooks were dragged before them, Ji-yeong bravely requested that Song-jae taste her dish before passing judgment. However, Song-jae threw a curveball, causing the governor to panic. His granddaughter had been captured. Declaring his intent to take her under a royal decree, Song-jae's actions infuriated the governor. Although the guests finally sampled Ji-yeong's dish and enjoyed it, they feigned disinterest, focusing instead on the governor's granddaughter. This enraged the governor even more, and in an effort to appease him, his son decided to condemn all the cooks to death. Fortunately, the timely arrival of King Heon prevented the situation from spiraling out of control. He tasted Ji-yeong's dish and deemed it incredible. Curious, Heon began to ask Ji-yeong personal questions about her background. When he inquired about where she came from, she candidly revealed that she was from 500 years in the future, a claim that made Heon question her sanity. However, her exceptional cooking skills saved her from further scrutiny. The king decided to take Ji-yeong and the governor's granddaughter to the palace. Although the governor attempted to resist, his son intervened, while Ji-yeong had no choice but to comply. In a moment of anger, the governor insulted King Heon, accusing him of neglecting his responsibilities in favor of women. This provoked Heon, who revealed his true intention for taking the governor's granddaughter. He aimed to avenge his mother's suffering at the hands of the governor. He subsequently ordered his men to exile the governor. In prison, Ji-yeong confided in Gil-jeom about her origins, and to her relief, Gil-jeom believed her. Ji-yeong revealed that she needed to locate her bag, which contained an important book titled Mangarok. Keeping his promise, the governor's son released both Ji-yeong and Gil-jeom, and Ji-yeong expressed her gratitude. As they made their way to the cliff to search for the bag, they discussed Gil-jeom's tragic past. Her father was missing, and her mother had been killed during a bandit attack. Ji-yeong invited Gil-jeom to join her in the future, and she eagerly accepted. However, while they searched for the bag, Heon appeared unexpectedly, catching Ji-yeong off guard. When they eventually found her bag, he tossed it aside, infuriating Ji-yeong. She promised to do his bidding if he helped her retrieve it, which led to her becoming Heon's captive once again. Upon arriving at the palace, he presented Ji-yeong to Mokju, noting that he had brought a guinea with him. Mokju's immediate dislike of Ji-yeong and her feelings of jealousy unsettled Ji-yeong, adding another layer of tension to their situation. The physician informed Heon that the ointment he used to stop the bleeding was crucial in saving his life, and Heon recalled that it was the guinea who came to his aid. Meanwhile, Mokju grew increasingly anxious and jealous of Ji-yeong, prompting her to instruct her maid to closely investigate Ji-yeong's background. In the bustling kitchen, the cooks were hard at work. Bong-shik was overseeing his subordinates as they chatted with Min Gi-duk about the arrival of King Heon, who had brought with him a guinea. Mang Man-soo cautioned them against discussing the chief cook's replacement out of respect for their recently deceased chief cook. However, Shim Mak-jin playfully teased Man-soo, assuring him that he wouldn't be the one taking over the role. Ji-yeong and Gil-jeom managed to escape from prison with a little help from a clown. To their surprise, it was a ploy by Heon. When the clown, Gong-gil, removed his mask to reveal his identity, Gil-jeom immediately developed a crush on him. Subsequently, Ji-yeong and Gil-jeom were introduced by the chief eunuch to the royal kitchen, where King Heon had assigned them to prepare his meal. Unfortunately, the royal cooks greeted them with cold indifference. Undeterred by the frosty reception, Ji-yeong pressed on with her task, deciding to cook a deer steak for the king. She served her dish using tableside service, and as Heon tasted it, he became intrigued. In the shadows, Song-jae struck a deal with Ji-yeong, offering her protection in exchange for her favor with the king and shielding her from Mokju's jealousy. Ji-yeong replied that she needed her bag to think over his proposal. Following Mokju's orders, Man-soo created chaos in the kitchen to intimidate Ji-yeong, but Ji-yeong was there to support her. The ministers urged King Heon to rescind his order for the exile of Governor Hong and even sought to end Ji-yeong's life. However, the king refused, believing the governor didn't deserve a pardon. Instead, he announced that Ji-yeong would be the new chief cook in the royal kitchen, shocking the ministers. Mok-ju informed Grand Queen Dowager Inju that Ji-yeong was a temptress who had captivated the king, asking her to test Ji-yeong's cooking skills. If Ji-yeong failed, they would have a reason to expel her from the palace. Ji-yeong and Ji-yeong were overjoyed to receive a warm room and new kitchen uniforms. However, some of the royal cooks plotted against Ji-yeong, unable to accept the fact that the king had appointed her as their chief cook. They aimed to make her life miserable to force her out, but their schemes backfired, as Ji-yeong refused to let them get the best of her. Ji-yeong was summoned by Grand Queen Dowager Inju, who intended to test her culinary skills, warning that failing the test could result in her losing her arm. The Grand Queen Dowager informed her that she would compete against the senior cooks, aware that Mok-ju had orchestrated this malicious plan. Song-jae alerted King Heon about the upcoming competition, expressing his belief that it was a manipulation by Mok-ju. During the competition, Heon announced that aside from the winning cook, the others would lose a hand, instilling fear among the participants. Grand Queen Dowager Inju announced that the competition would feature tofu and doenjang as key ingredients, with a time limit of 2 hours. As the clock started ticking, participants Ji-yeong, Bong-shik, and Man-soo rushed to gather the necessary supplies. Unfortunately, Ji-yeong consistently found herself stuck with the leftover ingredients from Bong-shik and Man-soo. Just when she was running low on doenjang, a kind eunuch came to her aid, lifting her spirits. The participants were hard at work, and Ji-yeong reminisced about what the eunuch had revealed, how the Grand Queen Dowager longed for the doenjang dish prepared by her mother. That sparked a brilliant idea in Ji-yeong's mind. She decided to incorporate clams into her dish. However, when she sought permission to obtain the extra ingredients, Mok-ju turned her down. Luckily, Heon managed to convince the Grand Queen Dowager to grant Ji-yeong a reprieve, agreeing that if she lost the competition, both of her hands would be cut off, a deal the Grand Queen Dowager accepted. Ji-yeong then instructed Ji-yeong to fetch the additional ingredients since she knew she wouldn't finish on time otherwise. As Ji-yeong rushed back to Ji-yeong, Mok-ju's maid suddenly ambushed her. Fortunately, Gong-gil came to the rescue just in time, allowing Ji-yeong to deliver the ingredients without a hitch. As the competition wrapped up, the judges tasted Man-soo's dish first, and, while they appreciated it, Heon felt differently. He noted the absence of doenjang in the dish, to which Man-soo responded that he had used it as a sauce instead. When it was Bong-shik's turn, the ladies in the palace enjoyed his dish, with the Grand Queen Dowager declaring it to be a wholesome family meal. Then came Ji-yeong's moment in the spotlight. Mok-ju attempted to criticize her, but the Grand Queen Dowager intervened, as Ji-yeong's dish reminded her of fond memories with her mother, bringing tears to her eyes. In the end, the Grand Queen Dowager declared Ji-yeong the winner of the competition and named her the new chief cook in the royal kitchen, much to Ji-yeong's relief. As the competition concluded, Heon announced that the hands of the losing contestants would be severed. Thankfully, with the Grand Queen Dowager's support and Ji-yeong's heartfelt plea, he rescinded his harsh order. Back in the kitchen, Bong-shik and Man-soo acted graciously towards Ji-yeong, grateful that she had saved their lives. Ji-yeong playfully teased them about their newfound kindness, which elicited laughter from everyone. Ji-yeong later mentioned that she had been attacked by an unknown maid, but was saved by Gong-gil, causing her heart to race. Meanwhile, Heon confronted Mok-ju regarding her underhanded tactics to oust Ji-yeong from the palace. This manipulation was a serious breach of his authority as king, especially since Ji-yeong was personally appointed by him, leaving Heon infuriated. Song-jae encouraged Ji-yeong to dress beautifully to impress Heon, as he favored girls who did. However, Ji-yeong insisted that there was no romantic connection between them. Song-jae reminded her that Heon often protected her, but Ji-yeong remained oblivious to his gestures as romantic. Their conversation was cut short because Ji-yeong had to return to her work. The kitchen received distressing news about Heon suffering a seizure. Ji-yeong decided to prepare a dish to soothe and relax him. When she encountered Heon in a fit of rage, her pasta dish swiftly calmed him down. Ji-yeong explained that the dish was inspired by her father. He used to cook it whenever she was upset. Sensing Heon was burdened, she thought it fitting to make it for him. Curious about her father, Heon asked Ji-yeong for more details. She responded that her father would likely worry about her. She then shared that she had come from the future and hoped to find the enchanted Mangarok book that caused her time slip, which might help Heon believe her story. But when Heon inquired about his future, Ji-yeong couldn't bring herself to share the unfortunate truth. Instead, she advised him to focus on getting through the current year safely and watch over those around him. Heon's creation, also named Mangarok, inadvertently made Ji-yeong's sought-after book disappear. His anger over losing one of his trusted subordinates left him feeling isolated, prompting him to seek solace in drink while Ji-yeong served him. In a moment of intoxication, Heon unexpectedly kissed Ji-yeong. After the unexpected kiss from Heon, Ji-yeong took out her frustration by pounding dried fish for his hangover soup. Since Heon had no recollection of the previous night, Ji-yeong's anger only grew, leading her to insist that he wasn't really her type. In response, Heon claimed he wasn't interested in her either. Ji-yeong then warned him to be more careful with his actions when drinking. Curious about the events of the night before, Heon questioned the chief eunuch, who revealed that he had kissed Ji-yeong, leaving Heon in stunned disbelief. Meanwhile, Gong-gil approached Ji-yeong, inquiring about Gil-jeom's condition after the attack by an unknown maid. Ji-yeong reassured him that Gil-jeom was all right. It turned out that the assailant was the same individual responsible for Gong-gil's sister's death, which he was intent on avenging. Seeking to smooth things over with Ji-yeong, Heon asked Song-jae for advice. Song-jae suggested that he should give her gifts, something special that Ji-yeong would truly appreciate. At a meeting, the ministers discussed preparations for the Qing envoy's arrival. Heon was incensed by the enormous tribute demanded for the Ming envoy, as it threatened the treasury. Hours went by, and despite Ji-yeong's concern, Heon neglected to eat until hunger finally struck, prompting him to request dinner. Ji-yeong made him a soothing chicken soup, which he enjoyed. The kitchen was busy preparing a substantial meal in anticipation of Heon's health checkup. Mok-ju instructed Man-soo to whip up something nutritious, while Ji-yeong also planned a meal for him. Prince Jae-seon pretended to genuinely care for Heon, but the physician assured him that Heon was perfectly fine. When Mok-ju brought her prepared dishes to Heon, Ji-yeong did the same. It was apparent that both Heon and Prince Jae-seon eagerly devoured Ji-yeong's offerings. Song-jae then handed Heon a bag, recommending it as a gift for Ji-yeong since she would be thrilled to receive it. When the Ming envoy finally arrived, Chief Envoy Yoon complained about the food the ministers had prepared. However, the three cooks from the Ming envoy, Tang Bailong, Kong Wen-li, and Yufei Xiao, impressed everyone with their culinary skills by serving a delicious hot soup that left the ministers in awe. The chief eunuch happily took Ji-yeong to the greenhouse, where she was captivated by the array of beautiful flowers and plants. She even discovered a chili pepper, which delighted her, despite Heon warning her that it was poisonous. To that, Ji-yeong confidently insisted it wasn't harmful. Heon surprised Ji-yeong with her bag, bringing her immense joy. He longed to confess his feelings, but found himself unable to do so. Just then, they both stumbled, causing them to fall close together, feeling an undeniable connection. Ji-yeong informed Heon that she was heading home after discovering the Mangarok book in her bag. However, upon searching, she realized the magical book was missing, causing her to seek answers from Song-jae. Unfortunately, he couldn't find it either, which upset Ji-yeong. In an effort to comfort her, Heon assured Ji-yeong that once the Qing envoy departed, he would order his soldiers to help find the Mangarok book. Meanwhile, the cooks in the kitchen were enjoying drinks together, and Ji-yeong, feeling sorrowful about the missing book, chose to join them and soon became quite drunk. Overhearing the eunuch mention that the Ming envoy disliked the food from Joseon piqued Ji-yeong's curiosity. The cooks chatted about the impressive culinary skills of the Ming envoy chefs, but Ji-yeong urged them to focus on their work, suggesting they use butter as a secret ingredient to capture the Ming envoy's palate. Later, Yoon, the chief representative of the Ming envoy, told King Heon with a demand for an additional 50 women as tribute. Heon rejected this request and indicated that he would consider what Ming could also offer in exchange for ginseng. He found Yoon's insistence unreasonable, especially given the similarity to previous proposals. As Ji-yeong prepared macaroons for the Ming envoy, they ended up enjoying the treat. Yoon was impressed with Ji-yeong's culinary skills and challenged Heon to a cooking competition between the cooks of the Ming envoy and Joseon. Heon accepted the challenge despite Ji-yeong's protests. He told her she needed to win the competition, committing to help her find the Mangarok book in the process, leaving her with no option but to comply. Grand Queen Dowager Inju commanded her allied minister to send a letter to the Ming royal family, noting that Chief Royal Envoy Yoon had shown disrespect toward the Joseon royal family. The minister, who secretly supported Prince Jae-seon, met with Yoon to inform him that the prince wanted him to win the competition while also encouraging him to demand double the tribute from Heon, a suggestion Yoon found appealing. With the competition looming, Yoon instructed the Ming cooks to take the event seriously. Gong Gil reported to Heon, warning that the cooks were no ordinary chefs. They possessed impressive martial arts skills. Meanwhile, Mokju directed Mansu to ensure that the Joseon team lost, bewildering him further. Seeking a way to prepare her secret chili pepper paste for the competition, Ji-yeong approached Heon for a travel badge. He agreed to accompany her, and to help her disguise herself, he provided her with beautiful dresses to wear outside the palace. While at the market, Ji-yeong enjoyed leisurely exploring, with Heon also picking up items for her. In the kitchen, Fei-shio sampled the chili pepper, the secret ingredient Ji-yeong planned to use for the upcoming competition. Entering with confidence, Fei-shio challenged the Joseon cooks to a chopping contest, which they eagerly accepted. Heon was entranced by Ji-yeong's beauty as he watched her from a distance. When a cart nearly struck her, he rushed to save her, causing the flowers she had been collecting to spill onto the ground. Ji-yeong had intended to give those flowers to Heon, hoping their beauty would help ease his stress. After their narrow escape, Heon joined in the fun, and they playfully smeared dirt on each other's faces. Before parting ways, Heon gifted Ji-yeong a charming accessory that brought a bright smile to her face. Meanwhile, the cooks of Joseon felt disheartened after losing a chopping contest. However, Ji-yeong stepped in to uplift their spirits, encouraging them to stay positive and fight on. During a meeting with the Ming envoy, Fei-shio had insulted their skills, calling the Joseon cooks pathetic. As preparations for the upcoming competition began, it was decided they would create a native dish, soup, and ginseng recipes. Yoon proposed raising the stakes of their wager from 50 to 100 tribute women and sought control over ginseng mining rights in Joseon. In response, Heon asserted that if Joseon emerged victorious, Ming would only receive half of the tributes that had been paid previously, and that they could buy all the sugar cane they needed along with as much flour as they desired. Although Yoon couldn't promise anything outright due to needing approval from the Ming emperor and his ministers, he agreed to petition the emperor if the Ming cooks lost the competition. As the meeting wrapped up with the competition scheduled to commence in 5 days, Ji-yeong confronted Fei-shio about her disrespect towards the Joseon cooks. She revealed that she had been keeping something safe for her, a damaged kitchen knife belonging to Fei-shio, which symbolized that the Joseon cooks would not back down in the competition against Ming. Ji-yeong sat down with her teammates to discuss the workings of a pressure cooker, which they planned to use in the final round of the competition. She urgently needed someone to create this innovative tool for them to have a chance at winning. While the Joseon cooks were busy honing their skills, the Ming cooks were equally occupied with their practice. Ji-yeong turned to Heon, expressing her need for someone to help create the pressure cooker, mentioning Jang Yong-sil as her first pick. Unfortunately, Yong-sil was no longer available. The chief eunuch then suggested Jang Chun-sang as a suitable alternative for the task. Ji-yeong insisted on meeting Chun-sang right away. Although Lee Heon wanted to accompany Ji-yeong on her trip to Gyeonggi, he was stopped by the chief eunuch, who reminded him of his palace duties. Lee Heon decided that Ji-yeong shouldn't go alone, so he sent Song-jae with her. Eventually, Lee Heon opted to go with Ji-yeong himself, directing Song-jae to take care of things back at the palace. Concerned about Lee Heon's absence, the chief eunuch watched closely as Song-jae assured him he would manage the Hall of Governance. He then informed the ministers that King Lee Heon was unwell and unable to attend to his responsibilities for the time being, suggesting they focus on the delegation and competition requirements instead to cover for Lee Heon's absence. Meanwhile, Prince Jae-seon and his allied ministers were already aware that Lee Heon had left the palace with Ji-yeong, and they were plotting something sinister against Ji-yeong, seizing the opportunity while they were away. Upon arriving at Chun-sang's house uninvited, they were met with an unexpected explosion. Jang Chun-sang, thrilled with his recent success in creating puffed rice using his invention. Infuriated by Lee Heon's arrogance, Chun-sang demanded they leave his property, and when they hesitated, he brandished an array of his weaponry, scaring them out. Nevertheless, Ji-yeong had a plan to sweeten the deal. She suggested enhancing his puffed rice with sugar, offering him some to pique his interest. Chun-sang was drawn to the delightful flavor, but worried about the sugar's high price, which would be beyond the reach of the poor. Ji-yeong reassured him that if he helped her, the sugar price would drop, making it accessible to everyone. Intrigued, Chun-sang listened as she presented her drawing of the pressure cooker, explaining its mechanics and how it could help them win the upcoming cooking competition against Ming. However, Chun-sang initially turned her down. As the cooks in the kitchen observed Mansu's harsh treatment of Gil-jeom, they found his methods questionable. Ji-yeong had a breakthrough. She decided to cook a delicacy from Busan to lure Chun-sang out of his home, and it worked. With her genuine persistence to enlist Chun-sang's help, he finally agreed to collaborate. Thanks to Gong Gil's assistance, Chun-sang quickly got to work on the pressure cooker. On their way home, Bong-shik and Mansu were approached by a mysterious man who instructed them to deliver a letter to King Lee Heon, warning him that Ji-yeong's life was in danger. The two cooks rushed to inform the chief eunuch. With Lee Heon absent, the chief eunuch and Song-jae quickly devised a plan to ensure their safety. Unfortunately, an attack did take place, but fortunately, Chun-sang's weaponry provided them with an early warning of the intruders. During the chaos, the pressure cooker suffered damage and Ji-yeong injured her hand. Despite this setback, Chun-sang promised to repair the cooker and deliver it to her. Outnumbered and surrounded by assassins, they were saved just in time by Song-jae and his forces. Ji-yeong fainted from the shock, causing Lee Heon to worry deeply about her. When she finally regained consciousness, they wasted no time in heading to the palace for the competition. As the competition was about to kick off and Ji-yeong had yet to arrive, the Joseon cooks grew increasingly anxious. When they finally made it to the palace, they were welcomed by the ministers, relieved to see them. The theme for the first round of the competition centered around a meat dish. The Joseon team decided to prepare braised short ribs, while the Ming team opted for kung pao jjigae. As they busily worked on their dishes, Gi-duk revealed that the chili powder and paste had gone missing, prompting Ji-yeong to quickly come up with a new plan. She decided to incorporate rice wine into her dish. The Ming cooks were intrigued by Ji-yeong's use of alcohol in her recipe. Meanwhile, the ministers were commenting that the Ming team was outshining the Joseon team. Fei Xiao, from the Ming team, used chili powder in her dish, which made the Joseon team suspicious, as the chili powder was their secret ingredient that had mysteriously disappeared. The tension escalated when Ji-yeong flambéed her dish, leaving everyone astonished, while Fei Xiao did the same with her creation. Once the cooking was done, the judges rated the dishes on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 the highest. Lee Heon and Yukoon tasted the Joseon dish first and were impressed, with Lee Heon even calling it brilliant. They also enjoyed the Ming team's dish. Before the judges could announce the scores for the round, Ji-yeong raised her hand, expressing her concern and asking to taste the Ming team's dish to clear her suspicions. However, Yoon wouldn't allow it, but Bai Long stepped up and offered their dish for Ji-yeong to sample. Upon tasting it, Ji-yeong's suspicions were confirmed. Chili pepper was indeed present in their dish. Ji-yeong pressed Fei-shio about the source of the red oil, to which she claimed it was from Joseon and obtained through legitimate means. Ji-yeong found this hard to believe, as she and her team had personally picked and dried the chili for their secret ingredient. Bai Long, a person of integrity, scolded Fei-shio for her wrongdoing. Consequently, Bai Long declared defeat for their team in the first round, infuriating Yoon. Fei-shio broke down in tears, insisting that her ingredients were acquired fairly, revealing she had received them from Prince Jae-seon, which shocked everyone. Prince Jae-seon explained that he didn't need Lee Hyun's permission for any kitchen ingredients since he was in charge of the royal kitchen. He clarified that the ingredients had been smuggled in by the chief royal cook, and he directed that they be thrown out for the safety of the royal kitchen. With Yoon's aid, Prince Jae-seon quickly evaded any repercussions for his actions. Bai Long told Fei-shio that even if she had obtained the ingredients legitimately, she knew the red powder was the chief royal cook's secret ingredient. Fei-shio had accepted it despite knowing its origins, which led Bai Long to argue that she didn't deserve to be a master cook. He insisted that if she had any pride left, she should at least accept defeat. Ji-yeong chimed in, pointing out that she also made a mistake by not safeguarding her ingredients. Despite facing these challenges, Bai Long chose to accept defeat. When Lee Hyun announced that the first round of the competition ended in a draw, Fei-shio formally apologized to Ji-yeong. Ji-yeong responded, acknowledging that she too had learned the importance of keeping a closer watch on all their ingredients, and they ended up playfully teasing each other about who would win in the second round of the competition. For the second round, Ji-yeong decided to prepare a Peking duck dish, as they would be judged on traditional cooking methods, and this dish had been served in the imperial court during the Ming dynasty. The Ming team was holding a meeting for the second round of the competition and noted that the Joseon team was quite impressive, particularly the chief royal cook, who was no ordinary culinary master. Prince Jae-seon faced reprimand from Lee Hyun regarding his mishandling of the chili ingredients from the royal kitchen. In response, Prince Jae-seon apologized and admitted to sharing some of the ingredients with the Ming team while stashing the rest away in storage. Lee Hyun instructed Song-jae to return the ingredients to Ji-yeong. Meanwhile, Mok-ju reminded Man-soo of her sinister plan for the competition, threatening him with the safety of his mother, which left Man-soo feeling anxious. As the cooks prepared their dishes, they were informed that the theme for the second round was to know and to change. They immediately got to work. The Ming team's Golden Lotus captivated everyone with its incredible aroma and vibrant colors, while the Joseon team was busy preparing their Peking duck. In a bid to follow Mok-ju's plan, Man-soo made a drastic decision to injure himself during the competition. When Ji-yeong attempted to step in for him, she unfortunately felt pain in her hand and couldn't continue. Luckily, Ji-yeong, who had learned from Man-soo, stepped up and executed the dish perfectly. It came to light that Man-soo had already confided in Ji-yeong about his predicament, explaining that he had to intentionally lose the competition due to threats against him, but couldn't withdraw. When it was time for the second round of tasting, they began with the Ming dish. Bai Long shared that he was inspired to create the Golden Lotus dish after being saved by a monk during a previous visit to Joseon. Then they tasted the Peking duck from the Joseon team and found its flavor to be truly unmatched. When the scores were revealed, the Joseon team received just 1 point from Yoon, whereas the Ming team racked up 8 from Lee Hyun. This infuriated Lee Hyun, as he felt that Yoon had unjustly scored the Joseon team too low. Frustrated with the fairness of the judging, Lee Hyun proposed that both teams would taste and compare their own dishes before presenting their scores, which would then serve as the final deciding factor for the round. However, when he asked Ji-yeong to score their own dish, she graciously declined, explaining that it was a collective effort from her whole team. Bai Long echoed her sentiment, stating he also couldn't evaluate their own creation. Consequently, Lee Hyun declared that both teams would be declared winners for the second round, a decision Yoon agreed to as well. To help Ji-yeong unwind before the third and final round of competition, Lee Hyun invited her for tea. Ji-yeong was captivated by the tea served in a cup that reflected the beautiful moonlight. Heon explained that it was called moon tea, and Ji-yeong described it as a wonderfully comforting drink. He then expressed his regret for placing her in charge of the cooking competition that would determine their nation's fate. In fact, he even contemplated bowing to the Ming and conceding the competition. However, Ji-yeong urged him not to do so, inspired by the unity of their team, and promised they would triumph. Heon next inquired about the arrival of the pressure cooker, to which Ji-yeong reassured him, stating she trusted Chun-sang and that he shouldn't worry. When she accidentally spilled some hot tea, Heon expressed his concern, telling her to be careful, as it would pain him to see her hurt, his gaze softening with warmth. As the third round commenced with the theme of soup with ginseng, Bai Long encouraged his team to secure victory, opting to prepare Buddha jumps over the wall, while Ji-yeong directed her team toward creating Ogolji Samjitang, assigning each member their specific roles. Meanwhile, King Heon admired the impressive ingredients of the Ming team, which filled Yukoon with pride. With time running out, Ji-yeong grew anxious about the pressure cooker's delivery, and the Joseon team began to worry. They soon decided to implement their plan B, but just in time, Chun-sang arrived, bringing a wave of relief. The team hurriedly ignited the fire to ensure their dish would cook on schedule. As the pressure cooker hissed and released steam, the audience held their breath, fearing it might explode. Nevertheless, Heon reassured Yukoon, saying there was no need for concern since Ji-yeong had everything under control. As the competition drew to a close, the tasting began with the Joseon team's dish. Upon sampling it, the judges found it exceptionally tender and delightful. On the other hand, the Ming team's dish was praised for its unmatched flavor. Heon then announced that the cooks would taste and score each other's dishes. Each could award up to 10 points, totaling 30 points, and Yukoon accepted this method of judging. All the cooks were tasting the food except for Winli. When Ji-yeong noticed this, she used her intuition to coax him into trying the dish by gathering the ingredients in one bowl. She reminded Winli that cooking is ultimately about joy and that, regardless of who wins or loses, she hoped he could appreciate the dish and find happiness in it. As Winli tasted the food, he was overcome with emotion, laughing and crying at the same time, as it reminded him of the stew his grandmother used to make. He was astonished by Ji-yeong's ability to recreate the flavor he had always struggled to achieve. Ji-yeong explained that she made the dish with care, suggesting that perhaps his grandmother's stew was crafted with the same intention and affection. Winli conceded and acknowledged his defeat in the competition. Heon announced the conclusion of the final competition, revealing that the score given by the Joseon cooks for the Ming dish was 27 points, while the Ming cooks had awarded 28 points to the Joseon dish, crowning the Joseon team as the winners. Ji-yeong felt grateful for the chance to compete alongside such talented cooks from the Ming envoy. Bai Long expressed his desire for a rematch in the future, to which Ji-yeong happily agreed. Yukoon informed Heon that, as promised, they would relinquish the ginseng mining rights. However, he requested one tribute to take back to Ming, Ji-yeong, the chief royal cook. This demand infuriated Heon, sparking a commotion between the two nations. Fortunately, the timely arrival of Grand Queen Dowager Inja quelled the chaos. A letter from the late emperor's second consort, Yeon, made Yukoon bow and ask for forgiveness, reaffirming his commitment to the promises made. Yukoon then decided to return to Ming and would communicate their appreciation for the hospitality received. Grand Queen Dowager Inju mentioned that Grand Prince Jinmyong was eager to taste Ji-yeong's cooking. Heon agreed and arranged a meal with the Grand Prince. Meanwhile, Prince Jae-seon and Mokju devised a sinister plan regarding Grand Prince Jinmyong and Heon dining together. Heon instructed his trusted aide to look into treasonous activities across the 8 provinces. He surprised Ji-yeong with a new cook's uniform, which brought her immense joy. During the meal prepared by Ji-yeong, Heon and Grand Prince Jinmyong enjoyed a delightful conversation. As the Ming cooks prepared to return home, they exchanged gifts with their Joseon counterparts. Bai Long instructed Ji-yeong to relay a message to the king. The sharp edges of things are often hard to see. When you go to sleep, remember to lock the latch securely. Ji-yeong promised to pass along his message to Heon. Queen Dowager Ji-yeon, furious over her son Grand Prince Jin-myung's illness, suspected Ji-yeong as the cause. Following her hunch, she had Ji-yeong captured for interrogation, while Mok-ju reveled in the success of her scheme against Ji-yeong. Ji-yeong endured a harsh interrogation by Queen Dowager Ji-yeon, all without Heon's knowledge. The chief eunuch informed Heon that Ji-yeong had been captured and tortured in prison, leaving him both shocked and furious. Heon wasted no time rushing to Ji-yeong's location, but he couldn't save her due to the Queen Dowager Ji-yeon's firm stance on punishing Ji-yeong. When Heon insisted on rescuing her, Ji-yeong intervened, urging him to avoid further chaos. Meanwhile, Prince Jae and his allied ministers were discussing the unfortunate incident involving Grand Prince Jin-myung and plotting their next steps regarding treason. Heon directed Song-jae to delve deeper into the circumstances surrounding Grand Prince Jin-myung's illness. Song-jae reported that his investigation found nothing wrong with the food. Concerned, Queen Dowager Ji-yeon fretted over her son's lack of improvement. During a visit to Grand Prince Jin-myung's quarters, Heon noticed a herbal medicine that he decided to include in his investigation. He couldn't shake his worry for Ji-yeong's safety in prison. Grand Queen Dowager Inju paid a visit to Ji-yeong, questioning her about the poisoning of Grand Prince Jin-myung, as this incident could jeopardize Heon. Ji-yeong denied the accusations. However, Grand Queen Dowager Inju released Ji-yeong from prison on the condition that she gather evidence to prove her innocence. If she failed, she would have to end her own life. Reluctantly, Ji-yeong agreed. When Ji-yeong emerged from prison, Heon was taken aback and kissed her, finally confessing his love. Over dinner, Ji-yeong explained her release, revealing that Grand Queen Dowager Inju had aided her and shared the terms of their deal. Heon took the silver knife given to Ji-yeong and urged her to forget the bargain, vowing that he wouldn't let her die. In a moment where Ji-yeong sought to clarify Heon's feelings, she playfully told him not to hug or kiss her without her consent, making him laugh. Mok-ju, feeling annoyed by Ji-yeong's release and the help she received from Grand Queen Dowager Inju, watched the duo closely as they continued their investigation, eventually falling asleep from exhaustion. Thankfully, with Gil-jeom's keen sense of smell, Ji-yeong identified a suspicious ingredient, leading to a breakthrough in the case. She rushed to Heon upon learning he had fallen ill, and they discussed the foul-smelling herb. The physician discovered that one ingredient, when mixed with ginseng, could cause poisoning even as they had consumed soup containing ginseng, which led to Grand Prince Jin-myung's illness. With the cause finally unveiled, Heon promptly instructed the physician to prepare antidotes for both Grand Prince Jin-myung and himself, while ordering the chief eunuch to apprehend the culprit behind the poisoning. Song-jae then reported to Heon that the physician who altered Grand Prince Jin-myung's medicine was missing, prompting Heon to command the guards to search for the lost physician. Mok-ju ordered her maid to silence the missing physician to cover up their wrongdoings. During a confrontation with Mok-ju's maid, Gong-gil discovered that Mok-ju was responsible for his sister's death. The maid revealed that his sister had sought to gain favor with the king, which enraged Mok-ju and led her to eliminate her. The physician later confessed to Gong-gil that Mok-ju had directed her to tamper with the medicine for Grand Prince Jin-myung. However, before she could disclose that there was someone orchestrating things behind Mok-ju, she was abruptly killed by an assassin. This assassin turned out to be a subordinate of Prince Jae. When Heon learned of Mok-ju's involvement, he confronted her, but she flatly denied all accusations and insisted that he produce evidence. Heon took it upon himself to deliver the antidote to Grand Prince Jin-myung personally. Yet, when the Grand Prince began to tremble, Queen Dowager Ji-yeon became frantic. Ji-yeong came up with a solution, providing a nutritious soup that proved effective in calming him. Meanwhile, Mok-ju visited her maid in prison, where she eliminated her to keep her quiet. In a lighter moment, Heon performed a dance in front of Ji-yeong, leaving her both happy and melancholic, as she was aware that her time was limited. Prince Jae-seon, meanwhile, was plotting something sinister for the upcoming banquet honoring the Grand Queen Dowager, intending to provoke Lee Heon by revealing his maternal grandmother during the festivities. Ji-yeong praised Lee Heon for being impressive, and in response, he shared that if the Mangarok were ever found, he would want her by his side. Lee Heon then asked Ji-yeong to be his companion, presenting her with a ring and sealing the moment with a kiss. Ji-yeong explained to Lee Heon that her feelings for him aren't rooted in dislike. Rather, she doesn't belong to this era and longs to return home. Lee Heon, determined, promised to find her instead. Ji-yeong reassured him that she would seek a way to reunite, but she asked him to promise that he wouldn't rule as a tyrant. In response, Lee Heon expressed his unwavering belief that she would come back and that he would be waiting for her. As preparations for the Grand Queen Dowager's banquet unfolded, the cooks in the royal kitchen were anxious about not being able to serve meat dishes, given the Grand Queen Dowager's dietary preferences. To solve the problem, Ji-yeong decided to create a meat alternative using soybeans. Meanwhile, Mok-ju insisted on approaching Grand Queen Dowager Inju despite not being invited, and with the Grand Queen Dowager's goodwill, she was granted permission to attend. During the preparations, Prince Jae-seon and his plotting ministers were scheming their treasonous plans against the monarchy. When he met Grand Queen Dowager Inju, he feigned sincerity while presenting her with a painting. However, she ordered him to resign from his position as the superintendent of the royal kitchen due to his wrongdoings, which he accepted without protest. Subsequently, the chief eunuch informed Lee Heon of Mok-ju's maid dying in prison, prompting Lee Heon to instruct him to have the royal secretary investigate, which created a rift between him and Mok-ju. At the banquet, Grand Queen Dowager Inju called upon Ji-yeong to inquire about the food. Ji-yeong shared that it was a soy-based meat substitute, earning the Grand Queen Dowager's approval. She was also moved by Lee Heon's dance performance. Just then, Special Royal Inspector Jang Jae-yoon disrupted the celebration to show Lee Heon evidence regarding his mother's death. The evidence revealed that she had been poisoned. Jang Jae-yoon revealed that the old woman present was his maternal grandmother, and her daughter's death had driven her to madness. Enraged, Lee Heon contemplated punishing Grand Queen Dowager Inju and everyone involved in his mother's demise, but Ji-yeong intervened to stop him. Thinking quickly, Ji-yeong decided to give chocolate to Lee Heon's maternal grandmother, hoping it might bring her back to her senses. Remarkably, it worked. She suddenly screamed about her daughter's final moments, recalling her wish for her son to become a wise and virtuous king, which helped temper Lee Heon's fury. Unhappy that their malicious scheme had failed, Prince Jae-seon and Mok-ju plotted anew against the monarchy. Meanwhile, Song-jae overheard their sinister plans but was caught eavesdropping and captured by one of Prince Jae-seon's subordinates. Ji-yeong cautioned Lee Heon about the alarming series of events, suggesting someone was trying to provoke him into losing control and acting violently. This prompted Lee Heon to reflect deeply. Ji-yeong urged him to strive to be the wise and virtuous king his mother had always wished for. Ji-yeong proposed to Lee Heon that he should give Grand Queen Dowager Inju a second chance by sharing a royal meal together, paving the way for a conversation and reconciliation. Lee Heon agreed to give it a try. Ji-yeong also relayed a message from Bailong, warning Lee Heon that the sharp edges of things are often difficult to see, and when you sleep, make sure to securely lock the latch. Lee Heon pondered the meaning behind the phrase, while Ji-yeong excused herself to prepare for the meal with the Grand Queen Dowager. Meanwhile, Song-jae's father overheard plans to assassinate Lee Heon, which led to his untimely death. Shortly after, Ji-yeong was kidnapped by the guards, but fortunately, Gong-gil came to her rescue. Amidst this chaos, Prince Jae-seon's allied minister began executing their plot to eliminate Lee Heon, misleading him into believing that Ji-yeong had been taken by rebels and was being dragged off to Salgoji Forest. In a shocking turn of events, Prince Jae-seon ended Grand Queen Dowager Inju's life and initiated a rebellion. As Lee Heon attempted to rescue Song-jae in the Salgoji Forest, he fell right into the trap set by Prince Jae-seon, where they were ambushed by the prince's army. Ji-yeong insisted on meeting Lee Heon, while Gong-gil responded that she was helping Lee Heon by ensuring her own safety. In the palace, Prince Jae-seon deceitfully informed Queen Dowager Ji-yeon that Lee Heon had killed Grand Queen Dowager Inju, sparking chaos among the court. He urged her to support Grand Prince Jin-myong's immediate ascent to the throne. Although reluctant, Queen Dowager Ji-yeon felt she had no choice but to comply. Rumors swirled in the market about King Lee Heon murdering his grandmother, and speculation grew regarding a new king soon to rise in the palace. Grand Prince Jin-myong was crowned king, and Prince Jae-seon expressed gratitude to his allies for executing their plan, hoping that he would soon be a wise and honorable ruler. Meanwhile, Ji-yeong and Gong-gil discussed Jin-myong's new role, expressing concern over Lee Heon's continued absence. Gong-gil decided to seek news from outside, and Ji-yeong asked him to give her accessory to Lee Heon if he found him, as a sign that she was safe. Suddenly, Lee Heon reappeared in the palace, telling Mok-ju that she had once been a source of comfort to him, unaware that it was merely an illusion. Mok-ju retorted that she didn't need his sympathy. Lee Heon sought a final discussion with Prince Jae-seon, revealing that he had unraveled Bai Long's hidden message, which confirmed Jae-seon's treasonous intentions against the monarchy. Realizing Jae-seon's ambition to claim the throne, Lee Heon urged him to protect Jin-myong's reign, hoping he wouldn't repeat Lee Heon's past mistakes. He was prepared to bear the burden of a dethroned king, but Prince Jae-seon coldly declared that he would exile Lee Heon to his mother's grave. In prison, a minister delivered the Mangarok book to Lee Heon, who wrote a message for Ji-yeong and affixed the accessory she had given him, which Gong-gil had subsequently dropped off. Gong-gil then informed Ji-yeong that Lee Heon was alive, bringing her relief, and she implored him to assist Lee Heon. Wrongfully accused of murdering Grand Queen Dowager Inju and inciting a rebellion, Lee Heon faced exile. Ji-yeong secretly approached him, telling him she would return, but he insisted she leave for her own safety. As the guards led Lee Heon to exile, they intended to execute him, but fate intervened when his allies arrived just in time to rescue him. Chun-sing's timely arrival turned the tide, forcing Prince Jae-seon's soldiers to retreat, though sadly, Ji-yeong was captured by Jae-seon. Lee Heon's loyal subordinates reclaimed the palace, taking down Jae-seon's allies one by one. In a moment of vengeance, Gong-gil killed Mok-ju for the death of his sister. Seeing Ji-yeong alive filled Lee Heon with relief, yet he urged her to flee. Nevertheless, Ji-yeong chose to stay by his side. She stumbled upon the Mangarok book, realizing it had been created by Lee Heon. As Prince Jae-seon attacked Lee Heon, Ji-yeong threw herself in front of him, resulting in her death. The Mangarok book then magically transported Ji-yeong back to the present. Lee Heon was heartbroken as he watched Ji-yeong slowly fade away. In his grief, he ended Prince Jae-seon's life, leaving a fragment of the Mangarok book before him. In the present day, Ji-yeong wakes up in the hospital and finally reunites with her father. Back at her home, Ji-yeong searches online for information about Lee Heon and discovers that his history has been rewritten. Despite her attempts to travel back to the past and meet Lee Heon again by reading the Mangarok book in various ways, nothing works, leaving Ji-yeong feeling disheartened. A month later, one of Ji-yeong's acquaintances reaches out, seeking her help to earn a Michelin star for their restaurant, which is at risk of closing if they don't succeed. After reviewing the kitchen, Ji-yeong agrees to lend her expertise for a month, promising to create a fresh menu to bolster their chances in the Michelin evaluation. To her surprise, when introduced to the kitchen staff, Ji-yeong recognizes them as friends from her time in the Joseon era. She informs them that she will be overseeing the kitchen, and they'll all work together to develop dishes inspired by the royal cooking methodologies of the Joseon dynasty. The team, excited to collaborate with Ji-yeong, feels optimistic about the potential outcome. Though they receive positive reviews, tensions arise when Steve Lim voices his dissatisfaction with several dishes without even trying them. This takes Ji-yeong by surprise, as he reminds her of Song Jae, who used to pick apart her cooking until they clashed. Just as the situation escalates, someone intervenes and Ji-yeong is astonished to see Heon. With Steve pulled aside to de-escalate the chaos, Ji-yeong finds herself in tears at the sight of him. He reassures her that he has kept his promise before leaning in for a kiss. Back at home, Ji-yeong receives a call from her acquaintance, revealing that Steve Lim was a fraudulent Michelin evaluator and has since been apprehended by the police. Meanwhile, Heon prepares a bowl of bibimbap for Ji-yeong, and she adds brown butter to enhance its flavor. The series concludes with the two of them savoring their delightful moments together. Hello! Feel free to check out another video or subscribe to my channel, and if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and drop a comment below. Thanks a bunch for tuning in.